Hey guys, on today's episode, we are going to take a look at Apple. They just did an event today where they released their new iPhone and they also released some other products. And the reason this is very important to investors because right now for Apple, the iPhone revenue is such a huge portion of its total revenue. It's over 50% of the revenue collected comes from the iPhone. So it's very important for Apple to continue to show with some strong performance in the iPhone realm. So today's episode is going to be broken down into the following. First, we're going to take a quick introduction of Apple and where it collects its revenue. It's very important for us to know where most of Apple's revenue comes from so we can understand how this presentation is good for Apple. Next, we want to take a look at the overall presentation to see what they release and how they correlate with the revenue and how it's going to affect the business. At the end, I'm just going to give my thoughts of the company and just some of the things I liked and didn't like about the presentation. So now that we got that out the way, let's get started. Like always, if you're new to my channel, if you're a long-term investor, if you like to learn about growth stocks, make sure to hit the subscribe button. To all my returning viewers, thank you so much for the support. It truly means a lot. Like always, if you ever want to get in contact with me, YouTube comments, Twitter, you can find me on Twitch. You can find me on my Discord channel, which is free to anybody who wants to join, or at josenaharo.com. Like always, everything I say here is just my opinions. I am by no means a professional, so make sure to talk to a financial advisor before making any financial decisions. Now that we got that out the way, let's get started. Alright guys, like I mentioned, today we are going to take a look at Apple. Is down about 2% after the presentations, but if we take a look in the past 5 days, it has returned about 5% to investors in just such a short amount of time. Like always, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the thumbs up. It helps the small channel out so much. And actually, let me know in the comments below, guys, are you an Apple long-term holder? What are your thoughts on Apple? And if you do own Apple, how long have you owned this company? I definitely want to understand how long people are holding some of these companies. So like I mentioned, Apple after the presentation was down today about 2.6% for the day. But again, this might show that some investors might have not liked what was presented. But when we take a look at just in the past 5 days, it has returned about 5.7% to investors. So even though it didn't meet the hype, it wasn't a complete turn down. If we can see, right, there's still strong returns for Apple. All right, so first, what I want to do is take a look at Apple's revenue so we can see where that money is coming in for Apple. So for the past 9 months, right now, which ended on June 30th, which was their Q3 for Apple, they gave us how their full year is looking at the moment for the first 3 quarters. So for the first 3 quarters, total net sales for Apple were $196 billion in the first 9 months. Out of that $196 billion, $109 billion come from their iPhone sales. So more than 50%, more than half of this company's total revenue comes from iPhone sales. So this is why an event like today, where they do pretty much just show the iPhone, is very important for investors. We can see the iMac is 18 billion. The iPad is very similar to 16.6 billion. The iPad is 17.9 billion. And services, which I think is my favorite thing about Apple. And let me just say this: currently, I am not an Apple shareholder, but individually, I do own some shares of Berkshire. But for me, Apple, my favorite part of their revenue is the services segment, and this is $33.8 billion. Again, still, all of this is minuscule compared to the iPhone sales. But what is services? For those that don't know services, here is, for example, one of the sections of revenues that I like a lot about here, and it's kind of being fought off right now, is when applications go into the ecosystem in the iPhone platform, there is some form of fee that they pay Apple when some form of transaction happens within that application. This services actually makes Apple the #3 biggest gaming company for Q4 of 2019. I don't know what the new information is for this year, but at the end of Q4 of 2019, which was just 9 months ago, Apple was the #3 biggest gaming company. And that's pretty impressive to say that Apple at the moment doesn't really have any individual games, but just that fee that it charges in other companies to have their services and stuff like that. It makes Apple the third biggest gaming company, only coming next to Tencent being number one and Sony being number two. And that's about $2.9 billion. So again, that's nothing compared to total net sales. And this is one thing, and before I continue, this is one thing I kind of hate, don't like investing in huge companies, because even though they are huge and they have pretty cool products, right? We can see the iPhone is pretty cool. The segments that I'm very, very bullish on sometimes are very minuscule to the overall concept of the company. For me, I am very bullish on the gaming aspect, but I wouldn't buy Apple because of the gaming aspect, right? That's not the thing. Even though $2.9 billion from gaming is such a huge portion of revenue, if we take a look at some other companies, for Apple, it's not that big of a deal. So something like that doesn't truly affect the stock price. Right, so it's just things to understand when investing in certain companies. You have to always understand how the segment that you are bullish on, how does it truly affect the money for that company. So now that we understand where the money for Apple comes, let's take a look at this event and what I ended up liking for everything. So the first thing that they talked about during this event, and a great research was done, great articles can be found in CNBC.com, is where I'm pulling out this article, but I'm just going to talk about the things I like right now. The first thing I like, the HomePod Mini, and this is just a minier version of their current HomePod that they have right now. This HomePod Mini, and I believe this is the great thing about Apple, and like I said, I'm not a shareholder, is it creates this kind of ecosystem for the business. It starts, the iPhone is the gate, right? It's the entry door to the ecosystem. Once you enter with the iPhone, now you're able to expand through these all different types of products that they have, the iMac, the iWatch, every other platform, right? So the iPhone, to me, is the entry door. And that's why I believe it's very important for Apple to continue that growth in the iPhone sales, or if not, to at least make sure to stay still. I would hate to see a decrease and slowdown of iPhone sales, especially if it's not during some crazy moment in the economy, right? Right now, due to COVID-19 and all these situations, if I was a long-term investor of Apple, to me, it would be okay to see a decline and stuff like that, because I understand with the uncertainties of the economy, in the short term of things, it might give us some form of just a bit of a dip or something like that. But in a normal economy, though, for me and Apple, one of the biggest red flags to me would be seeing a decrease in iPhone sales. Because it to me, since that is the entry door, it would affect the rest of the ecosystem. So the HomePod Mini is pretty cool. It's just a miniature version, cheaper than the HomePod, and they have cool features like, now if you if you have a house full of this, you can use this as an intercom. So again, it builds that ecosystem. The price for it is actually pretty cheap. It's about $100. The second thing they announced, pretty good, and we're gonna talk about the iPhones later on, is something they're calling the Safe Mag. So the Safe Mag right now is Apple has now had the new iPhone 12 has a magnet on the back of the cell phone that allows, when you do charging or when you add any form of new accessories to your phone, they can actually match with that pretty well. So if we have any entrepreneurs watching this show right now, this is a great thing to actually start thinking about. Hey, what can someone like to have on the back of their phone? So if you guys start up a new business because of this, feel free to let me know, and feel free to send me some royalties for giving the idea. But on serious note, that is pretty cool. It's gonna allow smaller businesses to start creating some form of accessories that get to match up with these magnets. So that to me is a pretty cool thing. They also, the next one I want to talk about is Riot Games, and they're releasing a League of Legends, which is one of the most popular and most viewed games in the world, is coming to iPhone 12 later this year. This is one showing the strength of the iPhone, which is showing that, hey, you can play AAA games, you can play amazing games on this iPhone. And we can see big boys like Riot Games, which is owned by Tencent right now, is backing it up by releasing a really great game for it. Now, as an investor, this one gets me thinking. I am very big in the gaming industry, so it gets me thinking of how the world is changing, right? We're seeing the gaming industry becoming more mobile platform, entering that mobile platform. And by Riot Games having a game like this, I think is just strengthening to me that concept that the gaming world is changing to more of a mobile platform world. And again, that should have investors thinking, hey, who are the best people to benefit from this change of market entering into the mobile world? The other cool platform that they released, and again, it might not be big for iPhone itself, but it's good to understand where the overall market is going. And with Apple being one of the biggest company right now, it's such a great thing to keep an eye on them to see what they are doing. The next thing I want to talk about is their lidar. It's pretty much a type of radar that uses laser. Lidar is used in pretty much everything, any type of sensing device. For example, if you have a Tesla, if you have self-driving cars, all those sensors are lidar sensors. The reason iPhone is using these LiDAR sensors are for two reasons. One, to overall improve the focus of their cameras, make their cameras better. The second reason, and again, this helps you as an investor or just a person that wants to understand where the market is going. It's helping to LiDARs also used for augmented reality. So if we're seeing that Apple is using this, and first the LiDAR was first introduced on the iPad Pro in March. So now they're introducing it to their Apple product, iPhone, their biggest product. So this tells me, hey, Apple believes that AR is now in the segment where we should really start to focus at it, right? Because AR is not new, but sometimes when products come out, they might be too early for the overall market. What Apple is showing me right now is, hey, that early phase kind of ended, even though augmented reality came out a long time ago. It came out a few years ago. Now is the time when we're seeing that amount of consumers really asking for this product. So that's a great thing to see next. And finally, the last thing we saw was their iPhones. They released multiple iPhones at all different prices. And we can see they're all lined up for 5G, I believe, which I think is going to be a huge thing. For me as a cloud gamer, I do a lot of cloud gaming, where I believe 5G might help me out there. So I don't think I'm going to purchase an iPhone. I'm more of an Android guy, but I'm really interested to see how these 5G's networks are really helping out with latency. Because right now there's this huge hype with 5G's, but 5G right now, to really experience it, I've heard there's only certain amount of regions within the United States where you can truly experience that crazy speed. For the most of us in the United States, we're not going to see much of a difference. So yeah, they have multiple iPhones. They have the iPhone SE, iPhone X, iPhone 11, iPhone 12, and the iPhone 12 Pro. All released this lineup, which is pretty amazing. To me, I think the presentation was pretty cool. If I may be honest, it's not something that really drives me to go buy Apple stock. Again, I'm not for any bearish reasons that would I not buy Apple stock. I think it's a great company, but I personally would rather have my money elsewhere. I can understand why certain investors would like to buy Apple. I mean, I feel like it's a safe bet. But the amount of growth it's seen in the past month and not much has changed in the overall fundamentals of the business kind of keeps me out for a bit. But hey, right now with low rates right now, a lot of people are entering the market, driving a lot of these stock prices to crazy levels. But look, year to date, this company has done amazing for investors, over 65% year to date. If you would have picked up at the bottom right now, Apple has given you over 115%. So that's insane. This has become a double bagger, and this is for a market cap of $2 trillion to become a double bagger. It shows that, hey, there really is no limit to what some of these companies can do and what are the returns that you can achieve in this market. Like always, thank you so much for today's episode. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the thumbs up. Take care, guys. See you next time, and take care.